Now, I'm not claiming these are the only 7 things that rob us of power in our speaking, but I do think these 7 are important, they're significant, they're habits which many people fall into, and they're all habits which, when we start to use them, largely unconsciously, I'm sure in many cases, they make us hard to listen to. When somebody's doing any one of these things, it's like listening into the wind. It's hard to listen to that person. So as I go through these, just ask yourself, have I been doing these things at all? Here's number 1, gossiping. Gossiping is essentially speaking ill of somebody who's not here. It's absolutely fine to speak well of somebody who's not here, not a problem at all. But when we're speaking ill of them, when we're criticizing them and they're not here to defend themselves, that is not particularly pleasant. And the reason it causes weakness in our speech is because we know perfectly well, although gossip's quite seductive and quite enticing to listen to, we know perfectly well that the person who's gossiping is going to be doing the same thing about us in 5 minutes' time. So it causes a great deal of caution in listening to that person. Second deadly sin, judging. I think we all know somebody who's a little bit like this in conversation. And when you know that somebody's judging, and I don't just mean evaluating carefully, I mean condemning, judging and finding wanting. When somebody's like that with us, or with everybody that they come into contact with, it's very hard to listen to what they say because what they say comes loaded with judgment. Third, we have negativity. Now, this can become a pervasive habit, and it's difficult to live with. I remember that my mother, in the last few years of her life, became very, very negative. One day I said to her, "Oh, it's October the 1st today." And she said, "I know, isn't it awful?" Well, that's a true story, and it's very difficult to be with somebody who's that negative about everything, where the worldview is basically everything's awful, and then that's the filter that life occurs through. Hard to listen to somebody who's in that mode. Fourth, we have complaining. Now, I'm British, and it is the British national sport to complain. We complain about the weather, we complain about sport as well, we complain about news, politics, just about everything. It's kind of a habit to do that, but it is actually viral misery. It's not spreading sunshine and happiness in the world if all we do is go around complaining to each other about how awful things are. It's kind of forgetting gratitude, which is a very important part of living a happy life. Then fifth, we have excuses. Now, we've all known somebody who's like this. We may even be this guy sometimes in our lives. It's not my fault, you don't understand, it wasn't me. Some people have a blame thrower. They just cast blame out everywhere. It's blame someone else, blame something else, BSE, another kind of BSE. It's not my fault, fundamentally. And those weasel words and those excuses become weak and become frustrating for other people to listen to. They also mean that we're not taking responsibility for our life, and that's kind of frustrating to be around, isn't it? Penultimate one, we have embellishment, embroidery, exaggeration. This can actually have a bad effect on language. For example, if I see something that's truly awe-inspiring, I can't describe it anymore as awesome because that word has lost all of its meaning by being overused. And we tend to use these words, and so just saying something's pleasant has now gone up to awesome, and I don't quite know where we go from there. But we demean our language when we start to devalue words by overusing them in that way. Of course, above embellishment and exaggeration, we get to outright lies, self-aggrandizement, and complete lying. And when we know somebody's lying to us, we're not interested in listening to them, are we? I think it's a very good practice to take on an exercise of being extremely precise in your speaking for a while, watching out for maximizing words like very and really, I'm really, really, really happy about this. We can actually be quite precise in what we say, and it's a fun game to play. And it also reins back, perhaps, the tendency to make everything bigger than it necessarily is. The final of the 7 deadly sins is dogmatism. And that is the confusion of opinions with facts, which are two different things. When they get conflated, it's really difficult to listen to somebody who's dogmatically telling you, thumping the table almost, telling you stuff which is actually opinion. So dogmatism makes it difficult to listen. As you can see, many of these come from the 4 leeches. They come from places of fear, and they're not productive ways to talk. If you want to be received in power, then it's a good idea to look at these and ask yourself, do I do any of these things? So here they all are, so that you can see them all together. And there's a little exercise that I'd like to suggest that you do, which is, with these words on the screen, just to ponder now for a few minutes, where do I do these things in my life? And are there any commitments I can make, whether it's for a week, a day, a month, a year, whatever it is, to reduce them or eliminate them in my speaking? Just take that time out now, pause the video, and then come back when you're done.